Sitting with me tonight, as always, is our chair of our crisis committee, the Honorable William Allen. We have our National Action Network staff and our Legal Night team right here in the House, and of course we always start with the two that make Legal Night possible for all of you, and that's of course the head of our youth team here at National Action Network and the Youth Huddle, and that's the Honorable Ashley Sharpton, and of course Patrice Perry, who's one of the coordinators here at the House of Justice. Winston Gilchrist is our videographer, and he's always on the scene, and of course he does our weekly broadcast every Saturday here at the National Action Network. We have many of our staff in the House, Brother Mo and others, and nothing can happen at the House of Justice with all of the people that both work here and volunteer at the House of Justice, and we always give them the greatest appreciation that we can, because nothing can happen without their dedication to the House of Justice, to the leadership of Reverend Al Sharpton, and to their own determination to be part of the pursuit for justice. We have a group of attorneys that are the regular attorneys for Legal Night, and they will all have a chance to say hello to you, but I always read our list of our Legal Night team, and so our Legal Night team is Robert Bellison, Andrew Burson, David Blum, Gary Certain, Kyle Edmonds, Jeffrey Emden, Barry Fett, Carmen Giordano, Pete Gleason, Kenneth Gilbert, Gabrielle Harvest, Ted Kessler, Glenn Myers, Kim Parker, Edward Pachado, Royce Russell, Joel Schmelkin, Denise Service, Wiley Stecklow, and Kareem Vessup. And of course we have others who are very much becoming a part of our family, and that of course is Attorney David Yearwood, who I believe is with us tonight, and others who will be joining us throughout the call. For those of you that are listening or trying to find out how to get in, you can pass the word along. You can join the Zoom at the meeting ID 881-7082-4381, and the password is Legal Night, all in lowercase. And if you want to call and you want to tell somebody, well, call in if you're having trouble logging on. Just call in at 1-312-626-6799, and we will welcome all of you here with us at Legal Night tonight. Just a couple of quick things that you all should be aware of course, and I'm sure you have heard it every time you turn around. I'm sure you've heard it, and I'm sure you've also heard many people say that this probably will be one of the most, if not the most important election in your lifetime. And so Election Day is November 3rd. So no matter where you are, when you are, how you are, you need to make sure you go out and vote. You can also vote early, and early voting in many places, you have to check the particular state and location to know exactly how to early vote. In New York State, early voting goes through November 1st, and you can go to the Board of Election to find out what your early voting site is, and or you can hashtag, is it? Harlem Week of Action, or you go to Find My Poll Site. My poll site, is it findmypollsite.vote.nyc? So there you go. So you can do that, or again, if you're like me, just type in New York City Board of Elections, or New York State Board of Election, or Kentucky Board of Election, or Georgia, or wherever you are, and it will take you to where you need to go. Everybody should also know, if you haven't gotten your book already, the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton has a new book out. It's called Rise Up, Nation at a Crossroads, and is out in the bookstores. You can order it. You can call National Action Network and get the book site, where you can go right to the book site and order it from any of the major booksellers, whether that's Amazon or Barnes and Noble or some other independent booksellers, but get the book. It is a great book. It has a tremendous amount of insight into the crossroads that we are at right now in this nation, and you want to make sure you have read it again. Reverend Sharpton also has that unique characteristic that I always say. You know, people said that Kevin Bacon, the actor, was 6 degrees of separation from everyone. Well, Reverend Sharpton is about 1 degree of separation from everyone, and he's one of the only people that has a personal and close insight to both President Barack Obama and President Donald Trump, and a lot of that is in the book. A lot of other stories that you wouldn't believe until you read them, and you can't read them unless you get the book. So please make sure you go get the book. Call National Action Network, 877-626-4651, or go online and you will find it, and you should get it. Right now, I'm going to turn it over for a second to the head of our crisis division here at National Action Network, the Honorable William Allen. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Councilman, and good evening out there. Happy to see all the attorneys on the Zoom tonight, and certainly all the others who have questions for them and for us. You can hear me good. So the mission of the crisis operation is the National Action Network, and we're all beginning to become more familiar with it. It's serving those in crisis, regardless of the size and definition of the crisis, by improving their social capital skills, as well as building organizational and civic leadership capacity to serve communities of long-standing need. And that's pretty much our mission and our 4 steps. As we always remind folks, all crisis assistance matters get full attention, no matter how small or big they are. Initial contact is through the National Crisis Call Center. We'll accept a brief and detailed record of the crisis assistance requested, recording the call date, full name, all telephone numbers, email, city, state, zip code, need for a lawyer, area of law, and timeline. Then the matter is reviewed by the National Crisis Director, William Allen, followed by the Regional Crisis Liaisons, the Regional Field Liaisons, Chapter Crisis Liaisons. All follow-ups will focus on the 4 required crisis steps. The first is legal referral. The second is political representation to access community resources. The third is clergy and community advocacy. And last but not least is chapter and chapter engagement for civic engagement, and leadership mentoring. We have quite a number of crisis cases that I want to talk about. Well, maybe they are, but in terms of at least the categories that we've had over the last couple of weeks, so folks can get a sense of the type of stuff that we're doing and how we're reaching some kind of resolution. In particular, we had a mother, actually a sister, who got in touch with us about her brother being released from prison, and he was wrongfully convicted 30 years ago. And they have reached out to us for some guidance, not only in terms of legal guidance, but political guidance and civic guidance on this matter. Another case that came to us in upstate New York was a father and mother called in about their son who was murdered by the police in 2015, and they're seeking justice. And so some of the cases I'm now reading is part of our national call law, and many of our attorneys and other members of the Crisis Network team have access to that law, so they're able to see these cases or requests in real time, and so we're all trying to follow up on these matters. Another case is that, you see, we got a call from a woman living in the NYCHA building, and she didn't have any heat. NYCHA is the New York City Housing Authority, heavily federally subsidized public housing here in New York City. Another case was in Philadelphia regarding her aunt, a woman regarding her aunt who was in a nursing home, and she was very concerned about her aunt's civil rights and how it tied into COVID-19. and needed to get some guidance in terms of how to handle that facility. Another case was out in Las Vegas, Nevada. Man was arrested for possession of drugs, has a court date, and is looking for adequate counsel. So as you can see, the type of cases that we have go from trying to get heat and hot water to trying to get justice after a murder. And sometimes, people reach us when the matter might have happened 20, 30 years ago. They felt that back then there were not enough systems in place. They didn't have enough support in place. And now with all the recent cases that's now emerging because of George Floyd and other folks, many people are now calling up saying, you know what? My case might have happened a couple of decades ago, but I want to put it to rest. I need to make sure that I've done all I can for my family member to make sure that I have reached out for justice. Other similar cases can be a little bit even more frightening. We have here a case where a woman indicated that some white men were trailing her wherever she went, and she was concerned about her safety, and that was in Texas. Back here in upstate New York, a son is incarcerated, needs an attorney. Case here in Yonkers, parole papers were not complete. They wanted someone to assist them with their parole documents. So we have some kind of administrative stuff going on here. And let me look at some more early stuff in the month. Let me look at this 3. Here we got in Connecticut, need an attorney for a business matter. So as you can see, some of our cases are not just criminal justice. Some cases are for business, for housing, employment, education, as well, of course, we said criminal justice, and the gamut goes on and on and on. We get about maybe 200 to 300 calls a week, and many of those calls are very serious legal matters or matters that require some kind of guidance. So that's the update on Crisis Counselor, and I'm here.
And did you tell us your team yet?
Yes, I forget, thank you. We have, I want to leave out the team. Thank you so much. We have a great, great team, and I really want to give them some acknowledgement. So we have now divided the crisis operation into regions, and the Northeast region is headed up by Brenda Ricketts, who's a longtime member here at the National Action Network. One of our new members and young members is Trayvon Butler, just graduated from Morgan State College. He's heading up the Southeast. We also have Joshua Curitan, who's heading up the Midwest. And we have a PhD candidate, Giovanna Marks, who's heading up the West Coast and the Southwest. And the great Brenda Dock is the one that makes sure that, and Sister Word, make sure that our mail responds go out every week and on time. And we probably got another, in fact, we have an advisory council, which now is over 100 people all across the country. So when we have certain cases, we alert them, and they serve as mentors to those folks that are reaching out to us. So we're really putting together, Michael, a very tight crisis mentoring system, by which is not only lawyers, but neighbors, and civic leaders that can make people feel that someone has their back.
That's right, and you can always, again, call 1-877-626-4651 to get to the crisis division. I have to ask you, William.
Yes, sir.
Because you used to be at the Board of Elections.
Yes.
You sat in that seat. There's been a lot of questions about absentee voting, paper ballots, all of these kinds of issues. And so give people something to either give them some direction, no matter where they are in the country, with regard to if they're voting by a mail-in ballot, absentee or otherwise, or other issues that they may confront. How do they make sure they can charge through that so that their right to vote is not suppressed in any manner?
I strongly encourage them to make sure.
No, but
My kid is on grade, and I have been calling since the beginning. We'll come back.
Okay.
We'll come back to you, Ms. Gray. Again, we do the program, so just stay with us, and we will be back with you at the appropriate time. We know your issue is important, and we want to definitely hear it, including any difficulties, but just kind of stay with me for a little bit, and we'll make sure we get everything handled. I guarantee that to you, and hope you will respect us in that way. All right, I'm sorry, William.
Thank you. So what I've been telling people, they must be in touch with their state or their county board of elections office so their rights can be protected. So you need to know what your rights are. And all of those agencies will have on their website what your right is as a voter. And it will also provide you where your polling site is. And if you have any problems, it gives you that whole process of how to address it. For example, if you're here in New York State and you have a problem voting on election day, you can file an affidavit, a ballot. And in some cases, that ballot allows you to go meet with a judge on that day. Normally here in most of the boroughs, the judges are stationed at the Borough Board of Elections office or some other central location by which people can reach that particular office. There are also a lot of great organizations like ours, the National Action Network. So if you call here and you're looking for help or guidance in that matter, we'll be more than happy to help you and to assist you in making sure that you're talking to the right people. We have become affiliated with a couple of major organizations around voting rights, and they have been helping us. I've had quite a number of folks call me, and I sent them to those people, and their matters were assisted. So if you have some, and then of course there's the vote.org, which has been incredible. If you go on that website and you put your address in, it tells you your early voting site as well as your regular site on National Election Day. It also gives you a sample ballot of everybody that's running in your particular area. So it's from president all the way down to someone running for judgeship or a party position. So we're here to help you. So if you call 877-626-4651, we'll be more than happy to direct you to the right source for your matter can be properly addressed.
All right, William, thank you so much, and we really appreciate that. We're going to go to Katrina Jefferson in just a second. I just want to also say that as soon as we come through Katrina, you're going to get to meet the attorneys tonight. We're going to have each of them say a quick word to you before we get into our presentation tonight, which will be brought to us by Attorney Wiley Stecklow. All of us have been dealing with policing issues, and Wiley will be talking to us about that tonight when we get there. But right now, speaking about policing, in New York State and in many other states, there's been a major move as a result of so many of the recent cases, and particularly George Floyd, where a number of states across the country and on the national level, a lot of discussion again about policing and how best to bring about what I always refer to as constitutional policing, which one of the things in our fight against stop and frisk, we know that that is the best way to do policing if it's done in a constitutional manner. So there was a listening session that's happening because all local jurisdictions in New York State have been required now to look at how they can modernize and diversify and improve overall their policing strategies. And so Katrina Jefferson, who's the national coordinator here at the House of Justice, will tell us a little bit about what happened the other night. Katrina Jefferson.
Attorney Hardy, and welcome to everybody to our final legal night of 2020. Last night, the National Action Network, here at our House of Justice, our headquarters in Harlem, we had the wonderful opportunity, I will say, in spite of all the, I'll say, challenges that the community has seen with the NYPD or with policing in general, we had the opportunity to host a conversation with the commissioner, we had Chief Juanita Holmes, who's the head of collaborative policing. And also the highest ranking African-American female in the history of the NYPD. We had the Assistant Chief Pontello. We had Assistant Chief of Manhattan North, who's important to our jurisdiction because each neighborhood in the city is broken up into an area, right? And so you have a chief over that specific area. And that was Kathleen O'Reilly. And then we have our community advocates that were part of the NYPD, a part of it as well. But what the department has done, or the organization has done, and by organization I mean NYPD, across the city, they've hosted conversations with 30 stakeholders within those respective communities, invited them to the table, so to speak, to talk about policing in their community, and what they felt like as individuals could bring about change. Last night, it was about a 2-hour conversation. The first half hour was the NYPD presenting us with a video talking about this reinvention collaborative, which Mayor de Blasio introduced earlier on in the year, excuse me, which is co-chaired by 3 persons, which are friends to the organization, to National Action Network, Ms. Jennifer Jones Austin, Ms. Marvette Arvo, and Mr. Wes Moore, who was present on last night. And they invited community leaders, and it was an open dialogue, COVID responsible, meaning that we were restricted to 50 physical persons within the building. And so we know that there were certain individuals who wanted to be a part, but of course we had to follow the state and the city's guidelines with keeping the crowd down to 50 persons, period. And so even in spite of that, it was a very lively conversation. They actually had it, and it's not the first or the last. They will plan on having this throughout the course of the year, so everyone who lives in New York City or even the state can log in with the next round of conversations that will be available on Facebook Live and via Zoom, similar to how we are conversing now. But everyone had the opportunity to post questions to all the chiefs, to the commissioner who was engaging, and get answers to questions that concern them, or things that they felt like were important that need to improve in their neighborhood. And just from being in the room, from both on the logistics end, but also the participant end, it was an eye-opening experience because 1, we were able to hear from senior officials, but 2, I felt like the community was able to not only bring their concerns, but bring their suggestions and ideas to the forefront. And I'm hopeful that as this series of dialogues continue, that the community can actually be a part of this reinvention and collaborative policing process. And so I encourage everybody to, whether you're in New York or even outside of New York, to follow on social media your local jurisdiction, because one thing I learned was that apparently every month, every precinct has a monthly town hall or meeting of sorts, where the community can actually take to that precinct their concerns regarding their neighborhood. And so I would imagine that something like that exists across the country. But even if it doesn't, it's very important to stay connected to your local, not just your elected officials, but certainly to your local law enforcement agencies, especially considering the current climate that we're in. The only way we'll see real change, not only is just to vote, but also to get involved with what's happening on the local level as well. And last night, Attorney Hardy, was a fantastic opportunity for us to do so, even within COVID. But we had spoken to the chief and certainly to our local leaders, and they will be doing this conversation again. There will be one for the youth, which was something that they brought up last night, that they wanted to start a series for the young people across the city. And so we know that's to come, but certainly for the adults to be a part of that ongoing dialogue as well.
All right, and we appreciate and thank you for that, Katrina Jefferson. And of course, again, all of that is part of the statewide effort to get all the local jurisdictions to get with it when it comes to policing, and in particular, policing in a manner that really does bring about professionalism, courtesy, and respect. Right now, we're going to go to the attorneys that we have with us tonight. We always give them a quick opportunity to say hello to all of you that are with us. And I usually just go somewhat in alphabetical order, because each of them are enormously important and giving to us. So you can never go wrong if you just go in alphabetical order, more or less. So it's the safe thing to do. So that's what I'm going to do. And as far as I can tell, we're once again going to start with that great young man, David Bloom. You're muted.
The alphabetical order thing always sort of catches me by surprise. Good evening to all the participants and to my fellow attorneys. It's very nice to see everybody out here for the final legal night. I want to introduce myself. My name is David Blum, and the kind of things that I can help all of you folks with, well, immigration issues, criminal issues, and family law issues are three of my specialties. I'm finding that there's a lot of people are being shut out of the court system, especially during this time of COVID. People with a lot of pressing issues. I know we were talking earlier about some of the criminal issues where people are not getting their hearings there, or people who were incarcerated for a while without getting a chance to get before a judge. People who have family court issues where their children are under conditions where they believe they ought to have different conditions and not getting before family court judges. And of course, we've got a new administration, and there have been some new immigration challenges that a lot of people are suffering. For instance, with our eminent new Supreme Court pick, we are rapidly approaching a time where LGBTQ and marriage equality rights are being threatened. And as terrible as that sounds as a esoteric concept, I am now struggling with clients who want to bring their partner from another country, and they're facing the possibility that that's not going to be an option for them. Of course, that if it's a federal law, it's very hard to do anything about that. But these are the kinds of issues that I deal with, those and family court issues. I'm going to put my information in the chat in a little bit. Of course, I'll answer the questions at the end, and I welcome anybody's questions on these issues and any other issues that I might have an expertise in. Mike, thanks for giving me the floor.
All right, thank you, David. We're going to go to Jeff Emden.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everyone for joining us. It's a pleasure being here. I hope everyone is safe, and I can't stress enough the importance of getting out to vote in this election and getting in your ballots on time. There's a lot of litigation going on in various states with respect to when the votes need to be counted, whether it's by the postmark date or whether it's the receipt date. So it varies from state to state. So you need to check your local law. The most important thing is that you vote and you tell everyone that you know to vote. That's the only way that we can effectuate change. I've been an attorney for 35 years almost. My primary practice is in the field of civil rights. Most recently, I've been involved in the protest cases that are going on throughout New York City in response to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all the other victims of police brutality. With respect to those cases, I'm representing protesters, onlookers, essential workers. Unfortunately, no one escaped the wrath of the police officers when they went to enforce some of the curfew laws. And they didn't even do that with equal protection for all. There was no observance of the COVID-19 protocols. Many of the officers were not wearing any masks. They didn't enforce social distancing. They were indiscriminately spraying mace into the crowd, causing people to cough and making it very unsafe for those individuals that were exposed to this. Individuals were placed on buses in close proximity to others. Medical treatment wasn't provided. Zip ties were used, and people were held like cattle for 9 to 10 hours. Their rights seriously abused. these are the kinds of cases that I'm dealing with now. I know Mr. Steckler also is working on those cases and is presenting today. So I do those cases. I've done many other civil rights cases involving the retaliation of police officers who have gone after those individuals that have videotaped the misconduct of officers, falsely arresting them and beating them in the process. It is of utmost importance that we not be silenced, and we speak out, and we stop this injustice from happening, and that we protect the rights of not only of ourselves, of others. Thank you very much, Michael, and everybody stay safe.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. I think our dear attorney and one of our longtime Legal Night partners is Attorney Kyle Edmonds. You're muted. There you go.
Yes, sir. How you doing, Brother Hardy? Good evening, everybody. My name is Kyle Edmonds, native son of Harlem, along with my good friend Kim Parker, who I see also on. Welcome to Legal Night. I am an estate planning attorney. People don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. Make sure, especially in times like this, where illness and death is upon so many of us, to make sure you have your legal affairs in order. And you can do that very minimally and basically by getting a plan together, a will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy, living will, disposition of remains. Just a few documents that would help you and your family and friends to deal with these uncertain times. I want to report that I've already voted. I hope you can say the same, and if not, please do before the deadline, and obviously by November 3rd. Thank you again to everybody who participated tonight. If I can be of help, please give me a call. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Edmonds. We're going to go to one of Harlem's wonderful attorneys, very diligent, and has been a blessing to the Legal Night team, and that's Attorney Kenneth Gilbert.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody stays safe. I have voted and stood in line for about 2 hours, but in order to get Trump out of the White House, at least without any type of military assistance, I think all of us have to get out there and make sure that he is nowhere and no way going to contest, because it's going to be a landslide. We're going to beat this son of a bitch. Excuse me. I specialize in criminal law.
No mouth.
I specialize in criminal law and family law. Right now, there does seem to be a lot of divorce cases around. I think the COVID-19 has kept people inside too long around their loved one, and there seems to be a lot of domestic violence that I've been representing people on, and divorces that I've been involved in. So just remember, there's a lot of things going on inside apartments, inside of homes. We must at least be diligent enough to talk to people to make sure that they're safe, and that especially women, they have to be very careful at this time. And it is a very dangerous situation from what I can tell based on the cases I've been seeing. So everyone stay safe. If you know of someone that is in trouble with any type of a domestic violence situation, make sure that they do get some help. One of the cases I'm dealing with, it was a domestic violence situation. In this regard, the mother of the 3-year-old son actually fled the country back to her home country of Russia to get away from her abusive spouse. Obviously, right now, they're trying to get the child back in family court at this time. But there are some situations going on out there. that everyone must keep your eye on so that we don't lose some of the domestic violence victims. My name is Kenneth Gilbert. I am in my office in Harlem on Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard and 135th Street. And everyone have a safe and glorious time.
All right, thank you, Attorney Gilbert. We're also joined by another, in many respects, one of the Harlem legends. She's certainly one of the hardest working attorneys that I know, and probably a future jurist in this state, and that's Attorney Kim Parker.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate that. So I'm a native of Harlem. I have a practice here for 20 years now, and I specialize in co-op and condo law, as well as child support, visitation in the family law area, and civil litigation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can.
All right, thank you, Kim. Now, I may go a little bit out of alphabetical sequence. I know we have one of our newer attorneys that are with us tonight, and I don't want to get your first name, don't want
Durakis left Durakis and Panic. If you have been to Legal Night before at NAN, I've been to Legal Night at NAN. I know you guys are used to seeing on the Zoom Miss Barry Fret, who's working on a big motion tonight, so she couldn't be on. You know, personal injury accidents, whether it's a car accident or premises case, slip and fall. Like tonight's a hectic, rainy, you know, miserable day, and you'll see a lot of slip and falls happen. We also have a full-service civil rights division specializing in excessive force, wrongful conviction, malicious prosecution. I know, you know, we've already spoken about the protests and a lot of the abuse that happens at the hands of, you know, unfortunately, the people that are supposed to be protecting and serving us. Doesn't always happen that way. We also do wrongful convictions. So we are, as I said, a full service PI firm. My motto is always, I hope you never need me, or need us rather, but if you do, we'll be there for you. We'll fight zealously for you. And I'm just happy to be here and offer any type of advice or, you know, just open the conversation up for whatever anyone needs.
All right, and we appreciate you, and you're absolutely right. Thank you for reminding me. See, that's what happens when you get older. So you stay young, because that happens. But yes, and the
Sorry, and let me add, workers' compensation goes along with
right.
workers' comp as well.
Yep. And the Ella Fracas Law Firm has been a great help to National Action Network, and we certainly appreciate them and the firm. And of course, as you said, there's so many people across the country. You know, one of the hardest things is to have been wrongfully convicted, and to be able to have places to go where you can seek justice on that is tremendously important. Next up, and he will be presenting later on, is Attorney Wiley Stecklow.
Good evening. I'm so happy to be here and happy to be able to present later with my good friend Brandon Del Pozo, who's also here, former Deputy Inspector of the NYPD and Chief of Police of Burlington, Vermont. I'm an attorney who focuses on civil rights and civil wrongs. When the police are engaged in misconduct and they're harming your rights, that's when I expect to get the call and I can come in and help you. I was at a protest just 2 days ago where I was able to negotiate with the police ahead of time in order to facilitate the free expression of speech at that activity, which included a very large helium-inflated Trump baby. And I actually have a small one with me. So you can't quite see it. There it is. So this was about 6 stories high, downtown Manhattan. And it was really a great time, and the police were very helpful in facilitating the event. So I'm excited to present later about the future of policing, and I look forward to speaking.
All right, thank you. And I know, Attorney Schmelkin, I did not misread the alphabet, but I'm holding you last for a reason, so stay with us. I'm going to go to Attorney David Yearwood.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Yearwood. I'm an associate at Arent Fox, specializing in intellectual property, and I also have a background in labor and employment law. So to the extent that any of you need any assistance with either trademarks, copyrights, things of that nature, or if you have certain labor and employment issues, I'm sure I can talk to you about those things. And again, I'll make sure that my information is available. All the best to you, and everybody be safe out there tonight. And please make sure everybody get out and vote. And to the extent that you cannot wait till November 3rd, don't wait, because that night is going to be a special kind of stupid. So, you know, to the extent that everybody can get out earlier, I'm going to encourage everybody. Let's just get the vote out and be done as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Attorney Yearwood. Now, with the exception of Joel Schmelkin, I think I've covered all the attorneys. If not, speak up and introduce yourself. All right, I think we're good then. All right, let me tell you why I left Joel Schmelkin last. You know, all of the attorneys, and we're winding up. Tonight is the last night of legal night for the year. As you all know, legal night is the last Thursday of every month, except for the month of August, November, and December. August, we always give everyone a break because people travel in the summer. It's everyone always needs a little downtime, particularly from having to be at legal night, which you know can on their nights when legal night is enormously stressful. Because you're addressing so many important issues that people bring to you, and some of them are very critical, and you know, so people need a break every now and then. So we take that August break, and of course, November and December are the national holidays. So we end when we come back. But this year and tonight is the last legal night of our 10th year of doing legal night here at National Action Network, and we have a great history attached to it. Maybe one of the things we work on in the next year or so is begin putting together a little brochure with all of the accomplishments over these 10 years and the different things that have happened here at legal night. And every one of the attorneys that participate, all of them give of their time pro bono. We can't thank them enough for doing it. And everyone has contributed above and beyond the call of duty. And again, we can never say thank you enough, and we certainly don't pay them. And some of you that may hire them don't pay them either. So, you know, they are truly to be appreciated. But I leave Joel for last because Joel has, in many respects, not only been such a critical part of legal night, but he has really helped grind the gears of legal night, making sure that the literature goes out, making sure that we stay connected to all of the attorneys, putting a lot of the literature together for legal night. He's almost at the Saturday Action rallies every Saturday. Always here on the Saturdays, sometimes to you know, address and help people that may be at the Saturday rally. And so he's played a very additional special role in legal night. And in this 10th year, we just wanted to take a moment to give Joel a very special honor. And while we, the attorneys, and this is a collective gift from all of the attorneys, Joel, while, again, we all struggle and it may not be a great thing, but what we will be presenting to you will be a very generous, well, I think is generous. You may not think is generous, but we're going to give you a somewhat generous gift certificate to Brooks Brothers so that you can prepare yourself for your next major trial. And I look forward to presenting that to you on behalf of the attorneys and the participants of Legal Night. And we thank you for your 10 years of service.
Thank you, Michael.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Michael, thank you very much, and I want to thank really the Nance staff for making Legal Night what it is. I have been an attorney for over 35 years. Got my roots in Harlem. Went to City College, took courses in urban legal studies, civil rights, and thereafter went to New York Law School. My practice, for those of you that don't know me, is half police liability and the other half negligence accident cases, whether it's construction accidents, automobile accidents, building accidents, street and sidewalk accidents, premises liability, medical malpractice, products. Anytime someone is injured and has been the victim of negligence is what we handle in my office, Schmelk and Associates in Lower Manhattan. But you know, it's not about me, and I really don't want to talk about me. What I really want to talk about for a moment or two is Legal Night, and maybe what Legal Night means to me and really means to the community. I think that Legal Night is very important. And it's important because of the fact that it serves as a platform for those who maybe don't have access to who don't have access to attorneys. You know, and really, there's a special thanks really that we all have to give to Reverend Al Sharpton for Legal Night. Those of you may not realize this, but Legal Night was Reverend Sharpton's idea. It was his brainchild, so to speak, if you will. So Rev, a special thanks for your inspiration, for your guidance, and for your approval of this particular platform. We started in 2011, and this is the 10th year. This is the conclusion. And I remember 10 years ago, Mike, being up at the House of Justice with you on 145th Street and speaking with you, with Wiley Stecklow, with some of the other attorneys, discussing how we can bring Legal Night to life, so to speak, and what we can do for it and how we can help this community and organization-wise. And really, Legal Night has always been within a theme of the National Action Network. That is helping those who are less fortunate, helping those who have been pushed aside, underrepresented, and discriminated against. And you know, you look around in today's society and we see there's a lot of social injustice out there. And the way in which I think that we're going to achieve social justice for all really is by having more platforms, more discussions like Legal Night, more civil rights groups like the National Action Network, more leaders, more civil rights leaders like Reverend Al Sharpton. 10 years, we hope for another 10 years to go, and then we'll ask for some more time. And really, Mike, sometime soon. Enjoy the rest of the program. Don't go away. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe. Really, really appreciate that. And let's give Joe another big hand. Congratulations. All right. So Attorney Wiley Stecklow, who introduced himself to you. Wiley, we're going to throw it to you. Before I do, and before we get eventually to your question and answers, again, we always remind everybody that engaging with the attorneys and doing Q&A with the attorneys does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. And for all of you, that's not a negative statement, but we're required to make sure we advise people of that. Wiley Stecklow.
Thank you so much. And I think I just checked. Brandon, I think you are being unmuted.
Hey, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, unmuted.
Great.
So first, let me give a shortish, if I can, introduction of Brandon Del Pozo. Not easy to give him a short introduction because of all he's done. Brandon is a son of New York City and a product of the New York City public school system. After earning an Ivy League college degree, he did something highly unusual for people who graduate from Ivy League colleges. he became an NYPD police officer. During his career, he rose through the ranks. He even got the NYPD to send him back to Harvard University, where he earned another master's degree there. And then they sent him to the Middle East to work the intelligence division there. Brandon and I first met during Occupy Wall Street. And like my friendship with brother Michael Hardy, even though Brandon and I starred on opposite sides of a lawsuit, we had a healthy respect for each other and we've stayed in touch. After Occupy, Brandon was recruited to move to Burlington, Vermont, where he became the chief of police. While there, he caught my eye again by not taking enforcement action against a First Amendment gun protest that was put together by University of Vermont students. And in the face of some fierce criticism from local residents, Brandon published a press release indicating why both the police department of Burlington and the citizens needed to honor the First Amendment. Obviously something very unique for a person in his position to do. After 5 years as the head of the police in Burlington, Brandon retired and finished up his PhD and entered academia at yet another Ivy League college, Brown University. Every police officer I ever meet and I speak to and I'm trying to negotiate something with, when I mention Brandon, they all know who he is, they all have a healthy respect for him, and they all reference his nickname at the NYPD. He's known as the Intellect. And so I'm very proud to present Brandon tonight, to bring him with me. He and I have had conversations about the future of policing, and I believe he has a very unique perspective on that. And I think based on what we heard earlier about how National Action Network is now talking with the police department, bringing the officers into the House of Justice and bringing them to meet the community members, I hope people can listen to how Brandon expresses how he believes the future of policing should be done. Because I think he's got some very unique and interesting ways of thinking about it. He's got the background and perspective to really know what he's talking about. And I think it's a way that we can educate ourselves when we're dealing with the current administration, the current police. We can really hold their feet to the fire about what we want as a community for our police department. So Brandon, welcome.
Thank you very much, Wiley.
You know, when we've spoken in the past, you've moved away from adopting the general term of community policing. Why is that?
Yeah, we were talking about this even a few nights ago. And by the way, thank you for that warm introduction. I always wish my mother could be there to hear it because she's still there in Brooklyn on 76th Street. Her big move in life, by the way. My father came over from Cuba, came up from Miami, met my mom. His dream was to meet this Jewish girl from Brooklyn. There I was coming out of that situation on 76th Street. Their big life move was to move. When they finally sold the house that my great-grandmother grew up in, it was to move 2 doors down in with a retired firefighter in his apartment upstairs. So Brooklyn through and through, but to hear New York City lawyers talk about my education would just, make her tear up. So if this is being recorded, maybe I'll replay it. So just seriously, thank you. Thank you for that warm introduction. It makes me miss the city. But about community policing, I feel like community policing means everything and nothing. I feel like it's a very amorphous definition. And I feel like when a police chief wants to make a good impression or they're under the gun, no pun intended, they just start talking about community policing. And I give this scenario where, a mayor or a city council has a police chief candidate at the podium during an interview for the job, right? And they go, the typical question, and it's a good-natured question, is, what are you going to do to bring community policing to our city? And I'll tell you, the answer can be anything. It could be coffee with a cop, ice cream with a cop, community input, inviting the community to meetings, letting the community know about the discipline process, listening to community priorities. It's community policing is like an amorphous commitment to a bunch of techniques. But if we look in America, like where really has the use of community policing gotten us, right? Like Minneapolis, Ferguson, Missouri, Portland, Seattle, New York City, Baltimore. These are all, you could pick a police jurisdiction that you're quite happy with, like Camden, I think is a good jurisdiction. And they'll say they do community policing. You can also pick jurisdictions I just named where there are profound problems, pockets of corruption, a lot of dissatisfaction. And they'll all insist up until the day before the crisis that they're engaged in community policing. So I know we plan to talk a little more about some alternatives, but I think like by allowing police to continuously hew to this like amorphous set of actions that don't yield commitments to outcomes. We just give police an out, and we give them the rhetorical cover to keep on giving the same answers to the press and the same answers at interviews.
Thank you. So to me, I think that's important for people to remember, that that term community policing can have no weight behind it. And that's why you have to sort of get underneath that.
Right.
I know one of the other things we talked about, Brandon, was, I think it was one of your former bosses sort of really pushed onto the entire country, starting in New York, I think, CompStat, right? Computer statistics and driving police towards that. And it took a turn for policing towards statistics and numbers. How do you see that as either helpful or harmful in the future of policing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. So let's see if I can remember there's 4 pillars of CompStat. And if you read like NYPD folklore, Jack Maple was this like rambunctious lieutenant who used to wear a derby hat and bowling shoes, or bowling hat and derby, I forget that, and he was in Elaine's on the Upper East Side, which if you know what Elaine's is, you're dating yourself, but I know what it was. He wrote it out on a napkin. And the first pillar of CompStat is accurate and timely intelligence and information. You got to know what's going on the street. You got to know where your crimes are happening, how many of them, what the situation is, right? Sounds very reasonable. Second pillar of CompStat is effective tactics and strategies. You got to know what works. You got to know what's going to address the situation. You got to know your plan that's going to get results. Again, sounds reasonable. Third pillar is rapid deployment of resources. So it's not a bunch of guys and gals sitting around jaw-jacking about a big plan to save the city. It's about getting the resources to the right place at the right time, right? And then the fourth pillar is relentless assessment and follow-up. And I remember, when I was talking about, I'll say this. So those are the 4 pillars. I use those pillars to great effect to address the opioid crisis in Burlington, Vermont. I went to my mayor. He's a Vermont native, but like if you heard my academic background, he's also like this overeducated technocrat. So I said, hey, we have this whole way that we're going to do the opioid crisis where we're going to apply CompStat to it. Timely and accurate intelligence, effective tactics and strategies, which is the medicine. Methadone, buprenorphine, right? Rapid deployment of resources. We're going to get the medicine to the people who need it. We're going to constantly be assessing how well we're doing that. Right. So I think that you want to measure what you're doing. You want to have a good grasp of the situation. You want to make sure if you're spending taxpayer dollars to the tune of billions a year on policing, that it's delivering public safety. The problem I feel with CompStat is that when you're measuring the things that are not the true endpoints of community health and resilience, but what we call the surrogate endpoints, the intermediate endpoints, you could have, and you're engaged in this paramilitary top-down way of doing that, you can have a fairly negative effect. And by that I mean, this is what CompStat measured. How many tickets were issued? How many arrests were made? How many kilos were seized? How many guns were taken off the street? Was it always more than last year? And then what the police department did, how many stop, question, and frisks were there? When you watch stop, question, and frisks on the New York Civil Liberties Union website, which I'm sure you've all seen, it goes from a few thousand a year up to 658,000 a year. That's because year after year, that was being relentlessly assessed and followed up on. It was falsely believed to be an effective strategy. And year after year, commanders could say, look, I did more frisks than last year. And look, crime is kind of under control, right? Is that what communities really cared about? No, they cared about their safety. They cared about their health. And also a lot of the things that the NYPD did by putting people in jail, for example, on their face seemed to reduce shootings and crimes, which people are entitled to, but had a lot of bad effects in the community. Incarceration tore the community apart, right? Tickets would suspend people's licenses and make it harder for them to get to their jobs. Giving kids tickets on the street for drinking and smoking might seem like a way to break up that crowd, but then you're giving these kids court appearances. So CompStat, the idea of effectively measuring what you're doing works. But when you hold police accountable to the ultimate measures that they're just not what a community cares about, you get what we saw in New York City. I know I went on, I mean, you're asking about 20-something years of police history, and I kind of put it in a nutshell. I hope that, I mean, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I think in summary, what you're saying is that what they're measuring with CompStat is the problem. And in the future of policing, what they measure has to be closer to what the city needs, like what the community is asking for. And I know you have an idea about aligning the goals of the police with the goals of the city public health and the civic life.
No. Thanks so much. Again, I know, Wiley and I listen, like no good attorney. I mean, he'd want me in the box without preparing me if I was a defendant in the NYPD. That was our first introduction, but he did prep the witness. So I knew he was going to ask these questions. Thank you. No, I felt like, I became a cop after going to Dartmouth because, Dartmouth was my first experience out of New York City. I went up through the public schools. I was fortunate to go to Stuyvesant, but just taking the train to Stuyvesant from Bensonhurst every day, my parents would just take a step back. I'm talking to New Yorkers. I'm up in the Adirondacks right now. My mother didn't even know what Stuyvesant was. My fifth grade teacher said, I think your son's bright. And I think he should go to this when he gets older, this high school in Lower Manhattan on 15th Street where the smart kids go. That changed my life, a free high school that puts kids into a good college. And when I went to Dartmouth, it was such a relief because going to Stuyvesant was hell. It's now the D train, used to be the B train, took it from 79th Street to the L to First Avenue. I saw a homeless guy stab kids in the back on the way home. One of my high school classmates was just playing pool after school. He was hit by a stray bullet and died. I was robbed at the L train was not where the hipsters came and went from. It was like you look down the L train on First Avenue and said, my God, that's Williamsburg. That's the frontier. It wasn't, I had a friend, and this goes to answering Wiley's question. I had a friend who also got into Stuyvesant from my junior high school, and his parents didn't let him go. And they didn't let him go because they said, we're just afraid of putting our son on the train. And I look back to thinking about how his opportunities in life were foreclosed because of how dangerous New York City was. So all these years later, I became a cop because it was a way, if you remember in the 90s, it was hellish. I said, how can I make this a safer place? My ambition was never to enforce the law or to rack up arrests or get that big stack of medals on my chest. It was always to say, you know what? I wish New York City wasn't a place where you were afraid to take the train. I wish New York City wasn't a place where you got hit by stray bullets playing pool. I wish it wasn't a place where I had to spray kids with mace on the L train once just to get home safe because 5 kids surrounded me and tried to rob me. What I realized as I became a chief and I was dealing with the opioid crisis in Burlington was what I cared about was a community's health and its resilience. And policing, if it just sets the goals of arrests and the crime rate, it's missing the ultimate goal, which is violence reduction makes a community safer. It reduces stress. It reduces fear. Reducing, robberies and shootings reduces mortality, reduces morbidity, reduces injury. Keeping the roadways safe, right, reduces injury. And also just what the police do, if you've ever been, on Church Avenue or Utica or Fifth Avenue or anywhere in the city or Prospect Park, cities are these crowded places where people are all competing to use public spaces for their own things. Some people want to barbecue, some people want a drum circle, some people want reggae, some people want hip hop, some people want to play sports, some people want to sit and read, some people want to play chess. Wiley knows this very well. Protests are one way to use a sidewalk. Vending is another way. Conveyance is a third way. So it's not only safety and health, even drug addiction, mental illness. This is all about community safety, community health. But also, police need to be the referees that help a city use its civic spaces fairly, right? And you don't want to just leave it up to the community to do that themselves, because then the people who get there first are going to lay claim. The people who have the most money and the best connections are going to lay claim. The people who are the most intimidating are going to lay claim. And then other folks, if 90% of the community says, listen, this is the time for the, the barbecues, but then someone else wants to play a violin. I'm just making something up. You don't want the people who you don't want just the 90% who do something one way to stop the other 10% from doing it their way. So ideally, to answer your question, what I realized about policing as I became a chief was our ultimate goal should be to align the city's public safety goals with its public health goals, which forces the police to measure things like the effect of giving tickets to suspend people's licenses, the effect of using force to stop crime, the effect of taking people who are having mental health crises in handcuffs and bringing them to the G building in Kings County, the effect of maybe making an arrest for a bunch of kilos of heroin, but then taking that young man and putting him away for 20 years, the effect incarceration has on a community. If you're doing things now that make a community safer, but that down the road make it less healthy, you're not meeting that goal, right? If you're not accounting for how the force you use to keep a community safe today has downstream stress and mental health effects, you're not meeting the goal of public health. And if you're not doing everything you can to fairly make sure that this really crowded, boisterous city is is fairly accessible by protesters and barbecuers and people commuting and people protesting. You're not doing your job as a cop. So that's kind of how I see the future of policing is really about public health and civic virtue.
All right, one last question, and then I'm going to turn the program back to Brother Michael Hardy. Right now, one of the big things we hear it at the presidential debates, we hear it on Twitter, we hear it in the streets, is defund the police.
Right.
And I know that in the city there was a big movement to defund $1 billion of the $4 billion budget the NYPD has. That did not pass through the city council, and the police had the budget back. As a former deputy inspector of the NYPD, what is your view on defunding the police?
Yeah, so one of the things I have the privilege of doing now is my main research interest. So, I mean, I got my doctorate in philosophy from the City University of New York, and I wrote my dissertation on the relationship between the police and the democratic state and what police owe the democracy they're supposed to serve, which is why I went on that long, meandering monologue about, public health and all of that. But the work I do now is about addiction and about the opioid crisis. And one of the things I've seen firsthand is that we have a lot of policing resources in most cities, but we don't have things like access to enough addiction treatment, to the right type of mental health intervention. So the idea, listen, I mean, I'm against abolishing the police, which I know is the final step of defunding. And I think that a lot of places like Minneapolis, originally in the wake of the George Floyd murder, which is what it was, they voted to abolish the police. But now a lot of the Black communities that were represented by the men and women who made that vote are saying, hey, hold on. It's been a long summer. I'm not exactly sure I want the police to just go away. I say that because defunding the police, insofar as it swings a pendulum very quickly in one direction, unless it's done carefully, it could have very, very negative effects on a community. And so I know, you and I had a back and forth about this, Wiley. I don't know if I want to skip ahead a bit, but this is what I'm not saying. And you don't want the police, when you talk about defunding them, to just pick up their ball and go home. Oh, you're going to defund me? Sorry, my cat just jumped on the table and almost took the whole tablecloth with her. That could have been, sorry about that, folks. My cat's telling me to hurry up. So you don't want the cops you see in a lot of cities to get so indignant that you're eliminating their budget, that they just pick up the ball, go home, stop responding to calls, and stop serving the community. That's unacceptable. You also don't want someone to say, wait, we can't defund the police too quickly because it's just going to have bad effects. So let's do it a little bit. And let's do it a little bit. Let's talk about that next year. You'll get a lot of people, I think, who make a bad faith argument about defunding the police because they're trying to kick the can down the road, wait a few budget cycles, wait for a new mayor to get elected, wait for crime to go up, and then use a lot of excuses not to defund the police. What I'm saying is a little bit more subtle, and it comes from being a bureaucrat. I worked as a bureaucrat as a chief of police. To build out the alternatives to policing in a city like New York with 8 million people and a $60 billion budget just takes time. It takes not one budget cycle, but 2 or 3 budget cycles. To replace police with citywide mental health, you want to build apparatuses that can get to any place in the city within minutes, that have a transportation network, that have a communications network, that are represented by a labor union, that are there 24/7, that have, buildings that they turn out of. That might not be the police. That might be crisis interventionists. That might be addiction services workers. That might be community peacekeepers. All I'm saying is defund, but not in this way where you're making a political statement that kind of sets things off balance. Understand that real defunding could take 2 or 3 budget cycles to hire people, build them up, create the human resources network, create the training, create the positions, build the buildings, buy the communications, all of that, right? If you really want for example, and I'll close by saying this, if you really want addiction providers, addiction treatment providers, and crisis interventionists and social workers to replace police in a city like New York that's 320 square miles with 8 million people, it's going to take a few years to get that up and running. Mayor de Blasio put $500 million into an alternative like that 2 years ago. He has very little to show for it. All I'm going to say is defund, but do it very, very methodically and bureaucratically and give it the proper care it deserves.
Great. That was my final question, so I'm glad you got into that portion of it. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out. I know this is your second panel of the night, second Zoom presentation you're involved with for a community. And so I really appreciate you taking the time and agreeing to do this. So thank you so much, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you. I just came from the National Bar Association where we were talking about policing in the election. I'll mute myself, but I'll send out an email link to folks. If you want to look at the National Police Foundation's guidance for police being impartial and fair on election day and not being an intimidating presence, but at the same time protecting people who are intimidated by others, we put a lot of thought into some resources that local police should pay attention to. I'll just give folks that resource in the box and then I'll sign off. So thank you, Wiley.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. Good to see you.
All right. All right. Thank you, Wiley, or Attorney Stacklow, excuse me. All right. So we're going to go to our Q&A, and that can include questions with regard to the presentation. Now, we just asked people to do a couple of things. Sometimes we know that some of you are involved in litigation. And so if you're involved in litigation, you have an adversary, and we only ask, since you're in a public forum, please don't disparage your adversary, again, notwithstanding views you may have of them, because we don't want to put you in a situation where you might create a situation for yourself in terms of defamation or something along those lines. So be mindful of that. And we also always tell people, because you just never know, if you just, and Brandon would be the first to tell you, if you just killed somebody down the street, don't tell us. You can talk to one of the attorneys privately and address that. And of course, I say that jokingly, but sometimes people do forget we're in a public forum. So please, again, just be mindful of how you speak, and of course, be courteous to others who may also have questions. So Patrice, who's first up? All right. So first up is our college student. You didn't put your name, so we're just going to call you our college student. Good evening.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
So I have an issue that's been going on for like 5 years. I actually moved from that college to a different one. This whole time, so I was discriminated against, and there's other personal things that I'm not going to disclose, as you advised, that I can talk to the lawyer, like really personal bad things that were done to me in school. I live in a dorm, and so I was discriminated against in college and retaliated against. So 5 years down the line, now with the Black Lives Matters and everybody running on the street, like all the Black people should be treated equally. Finally, the Department of Education got back to me like, hey, you know what? 5 years ago, you mentioned this and you want to, take care of it now. So being that it's been 5 years, I feel like I was discriminated against in school and by the DOE. I would like to speak to an attorney about civil rights that's especially related to education, please.
They don't understand it either.
Okay. Anyone want to speak to that very quickly?
No, I couldn't understand it.
All right. So, yeah. So what I would suggest, and we have attorneys that specialize in education law, and so what I would say, I think in all institutions, particularly as it relates to students, there a lot of the student institutional relationships are governed on some level by the handbooks within the college, the various complaint procedures, and some of the other general rules within the institution itself. But again, there is a whole body of education law, and of course, there are rules with regard to certain matters as it relates to education in terms of the legal rights of the student. And so if you just reach out tomorrow, 1-877-626-4651 to our crisis director, William Allen, we will provide you with the name of that attorney so you can speak with him directly.
Thank you very much.
All right, Sandra Gray. Good evening, and thank you for your patience. You're muted. Do we unmute? Yeah. All right. Hold on. Okay. Oh, you have to unmute yourself, Sandra.
Can
There
you hear
you
me now?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and let me apologize. Earlier, I wasn't aware of the order of things because I had called in and the gentleman gave me a number and told me how to be a part of this panel. So I didn't know if my name was on the list. So my humble apology.
Oh, you're okay. You're all right.
And first of all, as I was listening to the last gentleman that spoke, the former policeman, I am an advocate for police. I think very highly of them. And I often let people know that you have to learn how to separate the title from the person, because the police, an officer is a title, but underneath the uniforms, you have a person. And so I always treat officers with respect, to the point where in the community where I lived, where I was taken advantage of, I would often, in the morning, sometimes I would go to Starbucks. For example, a few years ago when they had an unrest here in California, and so many police officers were driving around in unmarked vehicles, I would go to places like Starbucks and I would purchase over 150 gift cards and take it to my local station, and for the police to have it, just to show them that I love them. Unfortunately, sometimes when you do the right things, you are not treated based on your conduct and who you really are. Sometimes you are just automatically labeled because the color of your skin, instead of knowing who you are. And this doesn't go for all police, because there are some fine officers that I know that are the definition of officers and gentlemen. At the same time, I have come to experience that there are some of them who join the force just to use that as an umbrella to carry out certain behavior against people, hate crimes, and the umbrella shield them. In my case, I am a professional real estate broker, a single Black woman who bought a home in the foothills of Southern California in a city east of Los Angeles, a different county, 15 years ago, and raised my daughter there. I paid $750,000 for my home. And about 4 years ago, of course, when the market went down in 2010, lots of people went into the area, Chinese, if I may allow it to say that. And these are multi-million dollar homes. At some point, the values went up, and the area is an area that is well sought after. So the Chinese would go in the area and buy a lot of the properties that are foreclosed from the bank, and they would pay cash for these properties. So about 7 years ago, a Chinese woman moved on my street, and she bought a foreclosed property. And she tried to get close to me, and I am a very private person. Nevertheless, I acknowledge her. At any rate, there was one property next door to me that was a foreclosed property. It was vacant. And so she told her friend about the property. He bought the property and he rented the property to some Hispanic people about 4 years ago. Unfortunately, we know that in every race you have dysfunctional behaving people. Unfortunately, that was the type of behavior I had living next door to me. Federal drug parolee, gang members, illegal aliens, and the list goes on. And all I did was ask for peace in my home as they would play loud music around the clock.
Sandra, let me ask you, what is there help that you're trying to get, or are you just sharing to us your story?
In order for me to, and I understand because time might be of essence, I'm trying to get help because what happened to me is that they were harassing me and my daughter in my home. And they told me that if I call the police, I'm going to have trouble on my hands. I put up with it for as long as I could. Eventually, I began to call the police. Long story short, the police would go to their residence because the police department was predominantly Hispanic, so are the tenants. So they would go there when I made the call and they wouldn't come to me. And they painted a picture as if I were the perpetrator. Eventually, what they did, they brought in people to put restraining order on me in my home a year and a half ago. Then I lived away from my home for almost 2 years while I kept paying the mortgage and paying rent. And then one police officer asked me to meet him there so he can see videos because I had about 12 cameras on my home. It's a 4,200 square foot house. When I arrived there, he kidnapped me and he told me he wanted the keys to my home. And he said, if you didn't give me the keys, I'm going to beat you. And he threw me in his car and he said, I'm taking you to the station. And if you don't sign papers, I'm going to beat you. I have no family here. I was born in Jamaica. I have lived here for 40 years. I had to reach out to my only sister in Pennsylvania who witnessed everything. So long story short, he kidnapped me and locked me away for 9 days. And nobody told me why they locked me away and what for. When I finally got out of there, when family stepped in and got me out of there, on paper, they put on there that I was 5150. I have no job. I called 911, everything to assassinate my character. And I am the opposite of all of those things. In the end, the police who kidnapped me told my daughter that he felt bad because he participated in a scam because her mom is a remarkable person. So here I am. I am out of my home because the Chinese who helped the Mexicans to carry out this against me, the Chinese are the ones living in my home, and I have to be renting 4 storages and living in a little apartment with my daughter. And every attorney that I tried to reach out to help me, all they told me is that unless you suffered broken bones or death, we cannot help you. It's that in itself is a crime.
Somehow stole your deed or so do you still own your home, or?
I don't own the home because what happened is I'm going to just fast forward because I don't want to prolong your time. As they continued to vandalize my home and took out restraining order on me for me not to stay there, and a judge gave them restraining order using with fraud, not knowing the truth and not knowing that I'm the homeowner. So when the judge gave the tenants the restraining order to run me away from my home, I lived away from the home for almost 2 years while I was paying the mortgage and paying rent. So at the point when I was about to run out of money, because every time I go to my home, they run me away from there, and police threaten to beat me if I go to my own home. So to answer your question, my house was about to go into foreclosure because they set it up that way so they can buy it cash from the bank. So as a broker myself, I could not even sell my own home. I tried selling it for 4 years while they were there, but they kept telling me, quote, we're going to run you away from there. You're going to see that house and you can't stay there. And you keep calling the police. You should know that all the police does is kill niggas and nothing comes out of it. Those were their exact words. So I brought in a Coldwell Banker agent to hurry up and sell the property for me so I can at least get something out of it. So a property that was with a market value of 1.1 million, I had to hurry up and sell it for 860,000. And the people who bought the property are the ones who ran me, who collaborated to run me away from my home. They're the ones in the house now.
Did you get the benefit of the sale?
Pardon me?
Did you get the benefit? You sold the house, so.
I sold the house, but I had to cut by profit and paid off the mortgage and walk away with a little bit because the market value was 1.1 million to prevent.
What are you trying to do then?
I am trying to get someone to help me, sir, to file a lawsuit against the police department and the landlord because I have violated and assassinated my character. You just don't do that. And as a single woman, everything I worked for, I have one daughter that I put through 2 universities by myself. And everything I worked for, they took it away from me. So it was a setup to take away the home. If you Googled my address, which was 12539 Tejas, that's T as Tom, E as Elephant, J as Jack, A as Apple, S as Sarah, Court, in the city of Rancho Cucamonga. It might come up as Etiwanda. That is my home. That as a single woman I worked hard for, and they just didn't think I should have it because the Chinese told me to get out of it. It was too big for me. And I said, who are you? I've lived in my home from scratch. I had my home built from scratch. Get off my property.
Sandra, let me ask you a question. This is Joel Schmelkin. How far are you from San Diego?
Darling, I'm about I would say about 2 hours.
2 hours. All right, look, out in California, 2 hours is like driving 20 minutes in New York City. I want you to call me tomorrow. I have a friend of mine in San Diego. My name is Joel Schmelkin. You're going to give me a call tomorrow, and I'm going to try to put you in touch with a local attorney because from what I understand, you really have to speak with somebody locally. You know, sometimes attorneys here in New York City can get involved in certain types of cases, but sometimes based upon the facts as I'm understanding them, you really need somebody local. My name is Joel Schmelkin. That's SCHMELKIN.
Yes.
Call me tomorrow in New York City, 212-227-8865. And I have a friend of mine in San Diego that has a more general practice dealing with real estate and dealing with lawsuits and things of that nature and so on. And, you know, maybe he can help you, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And thanks for coming by this evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello. Hello. This is Dave.
Oh, hold on, David.
All right.
Sorry. I will exit now.
Okay. All right. Okay, so David, hold on. Phil is before you. So Phil, you want to? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Okay. Hello.
Can you guys? Okay, you guys can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I was giving this information to everyone. I hope you have a blessed night. I'm happy to be here. I've got some wonderful information. I definitely got down. I got contact already through one of the chats from the attorneys, and we're going to speak tomorrow about what my situation was because I put it in the chat. I have a child support case issue from New York that has been going on now for some years. Both of my children are of age now. One is 18 and the other one is 22 years old. The mother of these 2 children of mine is an officer. She's a captain in Rikers Island, and I have been getting the runaround and a whole lot of nonsense going on with this child support since I have been home from, was it 2008? 2008. It's been about 13 years now. I went into the courthouse several times to get what they said was to get it reduced because I wasn't working. I had just came home from being incarcerated. That was one. I learned also that the time that I was incarcerating, there was still child support being charged, and there is being charged while I was incarcerated, which I heard they was not supposed to do that. That was supposed to be stopped. I went in there to also get a reduction. At the time when I came home, I got a job, everything. I was paying weekly because they were taking it out my check. And to make a long story short, I've been getting the runaround, and I believe I've been getting mistreated because the mother of my children is an officer, and every time I step into that courthouse, they know her, they treat her differently than they treat us.
All right, understood. And so I understand that you did get a response from one of our participating attorneys.
Absolutely.
He'll follow up with you, so that's excellent. I think we all can recognize that, you know, the situations that happen in family court are always very traumatic. And I think we always realize that if there's the appearance of impropriety, that is not fair to anyone. And in your case, it may not be an appearance. And so please make sure you follow up with the attorney. And thank you for being with us tonight and for sharing.
Thank you. Have a blessed night.
All right. I think David Owens was right before them.
All right.
I think David.
Hello. My name is David Owens, and I have a case in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. I sent a complaint to 500 Pearl Street, and the thing is that an arm of mine was broken in an arrest of me on the date 11/2/2016. I sent the claim to the United States District Court for the Southern District. I have the docket number, and I've been trying to get an attorney to represent me. I filed a motion with the court for a court-appointed attorney, and the judge made an order, and in the order, he denied the motion without prejudice, giving me permission to give him the motion at a later date. And he said things to the effect that he wants to see whether the case has merit, and he wants to see whether the case is complex to a certain level. And I think that the police officers maybe cannot justify the amount of force which was used to break my arm. Actually, to the complaint itself, to the amended complaint, I attached 2 pages of the arrest record from the date 11/2/2016 to show the arrest, and I attached a page of the hospital record to show the injury, the break of my arm, to show the connection between the arrest and the injury. I'm hoping that an attorney will help me. I got the names of a number of them from the chat, and I intend to call each of the numbers, each of the phone numbers which I have. I have the name and phone number of Mr. Jeff Edmond, Mr. Jeff Emden.
Emden, yes.
Right, Ms. Keontae Sutherland.
Yes.
Mr. Wiley Stecklow.
Yep.
Mr. Joel Smelkin. Mr.
Yep.
David Bloom.
There you go.
Mr. Kyle Edmonds. Mr. David Yearwood. And Ms. Kim Parker.
Can I ask a question? David,
Yeah.
you said you had the index number. I just went on the Southern District website, and there's a bunch of David Owens plaintiff cases. So what is the index number?
The index number is 19-CV-10213-GBD-JLC.
Okay, so you're before Judge Daniels, which is good. He's a good judge. He's a well-respected judge. I'm happy to speak to you about this. I think you said you have my number. If you want to give me a call, I'll be able to go on the docket before you call and get a good overview of what's going on with your case. And then I really like Judge Daniels, and if there's a possibility that I can come in here and help you, I would be happy to do it.
All right. That's what Legal Night's about. Thank you, Attorney Steklow, and thank you, David.
I thank each of you.
All right, Harlem Diddy is next up. Good evening. Hello? Oh, yeah, Harlem Diddy, are you there? Harlem Diddy. Maybe he stepped out of the room. Okay, who are we going to go to while? All right, Edith, are you there? Yes. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
How
How are you?
Thank you for being with us.
Yes, I love everything on the panel so far. So my case is dealing with child support, and I got a check for a disbursement of $30,000. This was like child support arrears that my ex-husband owed to child support. So when I call child support and you listen to the automated, it gives you the breakdown of all the checks disbursement. I did receive one so far, which is $23,000. However, the next check, which was $30,000, HRA took it. When I called child support to find out what happened, they told me that HRA claims that I owe them. I do not owe $30,000 to HRA. Yes, I have been on public assistance from time to time. However, I only receive mainly food stamps and Medicaid. As far as cash, I make my own cash because I do foster care and adoption. So I normally have my own cash from the foster care or adoption subsidy. So I don't really use the public assistance cash per se. So for them to say that I owe $30,000, something just doesn't sound right. I didn't get any notices in the mail, nothing. The most that I've done so far, I filled out this form. It's called Request for a First Level Desk Review of the Distribution and Disbursement of Child Support Collections. Okay, so I sent that off on October 9th of this year. I haven't heard anything back from child support. Well, actually I have. What I did receive yesterday, they want to close the case. So it said your child support case will be closed in 60 days. So it's saying if I feel that they shouldn't close the case, which I'm going to respond tomorrow, because I don't think they should close the case. If they do close the case, I guess maybe this is dealing with HRA, Human Resource Administration. So, but I'm not sure. I don't want this case to be closed yet because I feel both parties should be involved. Child support enforcement and Human Resource Administration. So I just need an attorney. I'm thinking Kim Parker. I did screenshot her information from the chat message, so I will give her a call tomorrow. I think she left the panel already, but she did mention that she handles child support cases. If you have any other attorney on the panel that's here with us now that can handle child support cases, I would gladly listen in.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have any others that do domestic relations, family court specifically. Jeff Emden also practices in that area. So if you have this information, you can check that. And of course, at any time, you can check with William Allen here at the House of Justice if necessary.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Edith. Before we take the next question on our 10th, as we close out for our 10th anniversary year, we truly have a very, very special guest with us tonight. He's my dear brother. He's my leader. He's the president and founder of the National Action Network. He is the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. Good evening, Reverend Sharpton.
Good evening, Michael Hardy, and good evening to all of you on this 10th anniversary of Legal Night. And I must say that all of us are in debt beyond words to Attorney Michael Hardy, who has been the creator of Legal Night. He helped to found National Action Network with me, been with us from day one when it was only a handful of us. Now we're in 105 cities, and they're doing Legal Nights based on the model he started 10 years ago. On Legal Nights, we've helped countless people, that the lawyers that have volunteered and been with Michael may never get in the papers for doing it. Michael never goes for a headline, but we've done everything from working with President Obama to commute sentences and watch people that come to Legal Night saying, my son is in jail, and then seeing their son walk down the aisles at a Saturday Action rally. Legal Night has helped people from having situations with their utilities at home to police brutality. This decade has been a decade of legal excellence at a very grassroots level, but has reached the top corridors of power in this country. And I think we're all indebted to you, Michael, and indebted to those lawyers that think it's not robbery to work in a community where you're not getting legal fees, you're not getting a dime, you're working because you really believe in justice for all. And on this 10th anniversary, I wanted to come in and congratulate you and let you know that one of the real pinnacles of National Action Network, of the civil rights movement in the 21st century, and one of the real pillars in our community has been Legal Night, the last Thursday in every month for 10 years, for a whole decade. People knew they could come if they didn't have a dime and get the same kind of legal advice that rich folks would get downtown. And you should be proud. And I can only think the only thing better than the 10 years of Legal Night is the coming 10 years that you're going to beat what you've done the first 10. Thank you. God bless you. And know that you're an important part of making history.
All right. Thank you, Reverend Sharpton. We appreciate all that you do and have been to so many people that are on this call, and particularly the people that come to Legal Night, because they come because of the leadership and the environment that you've created here at National Action Network for people to get the help they need when they need it.
All right. Thank you. God bless you. Keep up the good work. And, you know, I don't care how long Legal Nights last. I'll see Michael first thing in the morning. He's always the first in the office.
That's right. All right. Good night. Thank you, Reverend.
Good night. All right.
All right. I think our, okay, our next question. All right. Corey Pendergrass, you're up.
Hey, how you doing? Yes.
Thank you.
Good. So I'm dealing right now with a current housing tenant problem. We recently had our owner of our property pass away. Well, at least we were told. It was stated to us that she passed away. And right now, we've had a bunch of random people come in and state that they were owners of the property. We haven't been given any paperwork. We haven't been given any IDs. We don't know who these people are. But we, went along, because we were told that they were the family inheritors of it, and we paid a couple months worth of rent since. But we paid it in partial sums, you know what I mean, because we don't know who they are. And on top of that, it's a pandemic and things of that sort, and things have kind of slowed down on our end. But we have been recently getting harassed by them, and us and other individuals in the building. They've been shutting off the lights on folk. Just recently, somebody in the building has had to call the police on them. I have had to call the police on them. They've been grabbed our stuff and just threw it. We've had all types of violations in the room. And right now, it's like we don't know how to go about it because we've been told that they are owners of the building from them, but we haven't been getting any ID. The city hasn't contacted them about it, and we don't know how to go forward because how is this even housing tenant if the person hasn't even shown any identity to show that they're owners of the property? You know what I mean? And we've been getting the runaround. Even just recently today, you know what I mean? They came through banging on the doors, talking about open the door, banging on the doors. and you know, I had to file a police report against them. And it's like I don't know what I'm at my wits end because I don't know what else to do. You know what I mean? They grabbed all our stuff. They started, you know, throwing it and whatnot. We had some stuff in the hallway. And it's like, I know the mayor recently launched a new proposal called the Mayor's Office for Housing Tenant, for tenant protection or whatnot. And it's like, and I just found out about that recently and whatnot. But it's like, how do we go about, you know, individuals who are showing up at random, like strangers terrorizing tenants within a building? You know what I mean?
Yep. May I?
Yes.
Hi, Corey. Dave Blum. I'm an attorney in New York, and I do handle landlord-tenant issues. And let me tell you, first of all, that the kind of activities you're describing that are being undertaken by these alleged new owners of the property shouldn't be tolerated, whether or not they're the deed holders and in fact the landlords, or as you've described them, just random individuals who have come in to exercise power and control over the tenants. Nobody can act that way towards tenants who are in the property.
Yes.
Especially, and I'm going to assume that since you've described yourself as a tenant, somebody who signed a lease and has a long-term written contract to be on the premises.
Yes, we've been here 5 years.
And even if you didn't have that written contract, once you're in the premises. And it is the responsibility of the owners of the premises to take the legal steps through the landlord-tenant court to establish a basis for an eviction, and then have the sheriff exercise their dominion and control over your apartment through a warrant. None of that's been done. If somebody would have cut, now my name is Dave Blum, and if you scroll down through the chat, you'll be able to find my contact information.
Yeah, I would love to speak to you.
Yeah, and I'll speak to you, and you're welcome to call me tomorrow. Now, I don't know what sorts of activities are going on, and you said your things are being thrown out onto the street, your property. I would take steps to protect my property if there's property in the common hallways. Is this a large multi-family house or a?
Yeah, it's a multi-family, but we have violations inside of our building that they refuse to fix.
I don't really want to. Okay, I mean, and that's another issue. Their failure to address what I will call violations of your rights as a tenant are an issue as well, and they carry over from this to these theoretical new owners. But you definitely have a right to determine who these people are. You're, in this instance, one of your greatest weapons, and the weapons of your fellow tenants, is to withhold rent. But I would do that as a group.
Yes, somebody in our building is also withholding it as well. Actually,
well, but I mean, guy, we're going to talk later, but I think that there's going to have to be a group of you to get together, to band together, to show that, you know, you as a group are not going to tolerate this sort of malfeasance, these violations of your rights, your individual rights as tenants in that building. My name is David Blum. Do you know how to get into the chat, by the way?
I'm looking here and I don't see your contact.
Scroll. I was early on there.
I got in here a bit behind, so I don't
tell you what,
previous
Corey,
message.
Corey, you got a pen?
I'm gonna write. Yeah, let me go ahead and write this down in my my phone.
Okay,
and
so
I'm gonna
go ahead and do that because I want to give some people time here. My name is David
go ahead.
Blum. David Blum. That's BLUM. Simple name. 212-947-9416. And the last thing is my email. Ready? David at DavidBlumNYC.com.
DavidBlumNYC.com, right?
David at, that's exactly right. Go knock on. I mean, it's kind of late tonight. I don't know what your neighbors are doing, but if you could,
I spoke to one of them, and they actually had to leave the building because they turned the light off on them this morning. He actually had to call the police on them.
That's highly illegal. There's an order to show cause that ought to be filed on your behalf. Call me tomorrow. Probably noon would be a better time. We'll spend some time talking about it.
Okay, just confirm 947-9416.
That's correct.
Okay, I got you.
All right. Excellent. Thank you both. Thank you so much. All right, who's up? Prophetess Kim. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Recently, I was terminated from my job, and I feel like my rights have been violated. I worked for the same company for 8 years. My job is unionized, and in order for them to terminate, I know it's an at-will employer, but in order for them to terminate, I at least had to been on some type of written or counseling. I was not on any written, any counseling, no verbal, perfect attendance. And I basically feel like my job was sabotaged. Even last year, for example, I worked from July 29th until October 10th with zero pay. Because the company failed to pay me. The manager kept saying that he was putting in the paperwork for me to get paid, and I worked 3 months straight before they paid me. Once I threatened to call the Department of Labor, that's when they decided to pay me. So that's just one example. Another example, a manager told me, yes, I can go on vacation. So I went and I took vacation, and then he tried to say that I was like a no-call, no-show to work. And so I had to file, we have something called QIR. So I had to file like a code. I had to file like an investigation to prove that I wasn't a no-call, no-show, and that I was actually allocated, given the time and taking the time. But I have like a long-standing history, and I keep very good records and documentation. So I just wanted to know if I have a case, and what can I do to kind of, I guess, fight for any other person that might be harassed by and retaliated against. I feel like I'm the only woman in my store, and that was part of the reason why I was let go. So it's just a lot. I'm sorry.
Is it a small chain, or is the store, is it one of the major retailers, or?
It's a major retailer, yes.
Okay. Anyone want to speak to that real quick?
Kim, this is Joel Schmelkin. If you call me tomorrow in my office, I can speak with you about this. This may be a wage claim case as well. I don't know if you can get my number from the chat, but if not, you can just, it's 212-227. Okay.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to write it down. 201.
No,
I'm sorry.
212. 227.
227.
8865.
65. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Sharoya Pelza, she'll be our last guest this evening. Good evening, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm from I live in North Carolina. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And I need help with the criminal matter for a family member. Is there any way that I can speak with someone offline?
Yes. Now, is this for a matter in North Carolina or in New York City, or where?
I reside in North Carolina, sir.
Where's the arrest?
Excuse me?
Where's the criminal matter pending?
In North Carolina.
Yes.
All right. I think if you want to speak to someone offline, I guess as soon as we get off tonight,
Okay.
right as we say goodbye, just call right here to the House of Justice, which is 212-690-3070. And we'll get some of your information now, and then we'll take it from there, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
All right. So as soon as we're off, call.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thanks again.
All right. All right. We're good. Listen, this has been a great evening. First of all, once again, want to thank all of the attorneys that have participated this evening. As always, all of our attorneys, again, they do this pro bono, as Reverend Sharpton said. We can't thank them enough. On the last Legal Night for the year. They were also very gracious in their responses tonight, and we certainly appreciate that, making these connections and trying to get people to the next step. So much of being an attorney is also being a counselor, and each of these attorneys do both so well. And so once again, we thank all of our attorneys, and especially our hero for the 10 years, which is all of the attorneys, but we're especially honoring Joel Schmelkin. We thank him.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
again, we will be
Love you,
back.
Joel.
We will be back on the last Thursday of January. And Joel?
January 28th. Mark your calendar.
January 28th. Mark it in your book.
That's it.
Last Thursday of the new year, as
right.
we be kicking off our 11th year. We want to thank Wiley and Brandon, I should say Attorney Stecklow. So he's such a buddy. You know, we occasionally just jump into first names. But Attorney Stecklow for his presentation tonight, and for all of you. There's no one more important than those of you that come to Legal Night to find some relief, some answers, or just some companionship for whatever you may be going through. And we are always here to help you. We're always an ear to give to you, and we will be there. No justice, no peace. God bless you. And again, we want to thank our coordinators for our National Legal Night. And that, again, is Ashley Sharpton, who also heads up the Youth Huddle here at National Action Network, and our own House of Justice Deputy Coordinator here, Patrice Perry. So again, thank you all. God bless you all. We'll see you in January. Be safe, stay healthy, and have some fun in all of what's going on. Thank you so much. And as Derek said, Happy New Year also.
Thank you, Michael.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Wiley, for bringing that excellent guest.
Glad you liked it.
He was amazing.
Absolutely, Wiley. Great.
I mean, wow.
Great choice.
Really. I was listening to all those credentials, and then